Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Too Many Words, Managing Longer Reading in Canvas. And my name is Mark Cooper, and joining me on the call today, the webinar today is Lisa Kidder and Ryan Randall. And the overview for today's session is we'll talk about what do we mean by a long reading and why we have long readings in our courses and what we can do with them when we transition from Moodle to Canvas. What are some of the challenges? What are some considerations? And then we'll look at some alternatives. All hope is not lost. There are some alternatives that we have researched to come up with that can help you with your longer readings. So what do we mean by a longer reading? And what we mean by that is any content that's long enough, vast enough to require organization into multiple sections, chapters, and topics. And an example of that would be if you use the book tool in Moodle. And why is this important? Well, first of all, it's important because to break up things into smaller pieces for student engagement. So long readings can easily cause students to lose their focus, especially when the content is in a single continuous scroll of death page. So when material is organized into smaller, well-defined sections, students are more likely to engage with it and then therefore not feel overwhelmed. Another reason is just for ease of navigation, so that students can easily move through your course content, especially if they want to visit specific sections of the content. Also for knowledge retention, so long interrupted blocks of text can lead to overload, cognitive overload, making it harder for students to process and retain this information. Accessibility is a factor here. So different students have different learning needs, and using assistive technology, a well-organized content helps with this effort. Structured content that enables students, regardless of their needs, to access it without any difficulty. And finally, for consistency. So with the transition to Canvas, ensuring that your content is presented consistently across your course is a key to success, a key to student success, instructor success. So a well-structured approach to handling these long readings not only ensures that students know what to expect, but also improves their ability to navigate, as we talked about earlier, different courses efficiently. So what are some of the challenges with longer readings? Well, first of all, there's no direct equivalent of the Moodle book in Canvas, and that's what we're going to talk about today are some alternatives, creative ways that we have helped to overcome this hurdle. So the book feature allows the instructor to create multiple pages, structuring the content similar to like a textbook with chapters and sections. And Canvas, however, lacks a built-in equivalent to the book feature. So instructors have to rely on pages, which is what Canvas is made out of, and typically single standalone units of content. And so we're going to talk about how to structure those. Also, limited content organization in tools in Canvas. So your content is placed on pages, which are not designed to handle large amounts of content in a structured way. So organizing it becomes a challenge, especially for courses with extensive reading materials. Another challenge is that it overwhelms students, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, having all of this information on one page, it overwhelms and reduces engagement, and also the navigational issues that we talked about. So some things to consider when dealing with longer readings, especially during the transition from Moodle to Canvas, are how should students engage with the content? So you have free navigation or guided navigation. And free navigation was where students just navigate through the readings at their own pace, revisiting sections as needed. And this works well for students who are more experienced learners, but you might have a guided navigation controlling the order in which students can engage with the material and this is beneficial for more complex subjects. You might have to consider, do I have downloadable content or student-generated contributions? So downloaded content would be PDF formats that are commonly used for this purpose, and will students be referencing readings that are outside the LMS? And student-generated contributions for more interactive learning, you may want to have students engage by contributing content, such as adding comments and reflections, things like that. Another consideration would be, do you require conditional access? And what we mean by that is, in Moodle, you can control the access, the release of the content to meet specific criteria, like you have to complete an activity or a quiz prior to moving on to the next section. And in Canvas, this is also achieved through the use of requirements and prerequisites in the modules. So conditional releases can ensure that the students build the necessary background of knowledge before they advance on scaffolding the information, scaffolding the learning of complex content. And finally, should there be a table of contents or other navigational aids within your long reading? And so there's a variety of different options for this. So if you're using Google Docs, you can insert a table of contents. Later on, we're going to talk about Pressbooks, and Pressbooks, you can also use the table of contents to help break up content and allow students to navigate to different parts of that content. So now I'm going to send it over to Lisa, and she's going to talk about how you can handle longer readings with the transition from Moodle to Canvas.
Thank you, Mark. We wanted to put these considerations out there first so that you can think about these, especially as we go through some of the pros and cons. Today, we're going to talk about 5 different options. These are not listed in order. I just numbered them so I can remember that there's 5. So, and if none of these work, we can explore your specific book use and see what there is. First of all, Canvas pages. By default, this is how your book will come in. So here we have a book that had 3 pages. Here's the first page, and we would go down and it would just go to the next page. And then here's our page 2. Notice that in the page you can embed videos. That's a YouTube video. And the third page of this book is actually an embedded website. It's a little bit longer scrolling. There's a video there, but you'll notice that there's 2 scroll bars because it is so long, which is the other thing to kind of think about, is how long things get. Some of the pros and cons of this is the default import. So if you do not want to do anything and modify your book, this is how they will come in. They will come in 1 chapter per page. They're easy to track because you can see them all listed out. The Canvas pages work really nicely if you want to use prerequisites. So this is a great way if you want to make sure that they read chapter 1 before they get to chapter 2, etc. The prerequisites work really nicely with this. The con is this makes for a really long list in your module section, which is part of the reason that people use the Moodle books in the first place, is to reduce that long list. Here are some Google Doc options. There's 3 options that I'm showing you here in this video. The first one is just a link. Notice it goes out to a different page. There's an icon that tells you that. This one is set up so that you can copy it and use it as a template. In Canvas, there is this nice preview option for any file type. Google's Docs work. This is a Word document. So students actually can preview without having to download. They can download, or they can just close this back up and it's there. If you use a Google Doc, you can actually embed it just like we did with the web page. There's an option to do it. This is really nice because you can add the same Google Doc to multiple courses, especially if you're just linking out. It's easy to update when you're in your Google context. Cons is depending on how long of reading that you have. It could be a long scroll. Google storage limits. and remembering to have the right access permissions on your Google Docs. The other thing too is that I just thought of, because we were discussing it this morning, is organizing your Google Drive to make sure that you can find it again. But notice that there was 3 different options there with a Google Doc. One was changed into Word, but I wanted to highlight how that file feature works in Canvas. Next option is Google Slides. Now, the nice thing about this is there's some interactive navigation, and some people say, but I have a long document. You can make your Google slide any size you want. You can make it landscape, you can make it portrait, you can make it 11 by 17, you could make it 11 by 200. So there's a variety of phrases, even though what you're going to see here is actually the normal slide. In this example, you're going to feel like, wait, there should be audio. So that's something to think about. If that's the case, then maybe you should just do a video and put it in Panopto. Again, we have Google storage limits here, but you'll notice here with this Google Slides example, it fits in right here, and you can use the navigation to move through. Notice that there's animation part of this, so there is kind of an interactive piece that the students need to go through. So you can build that into your Google Slides. They can navigate just like they can and jump to different pages, etc. So this is another alternative way to move things over into Google Slides. All right, our next option is Design Plus. Design Plus is a great tool for refining your course. So once you get the basics in, it's a good refinement. This one is going to show you tabs. It's on one page. There's some internal navigation. It adds some interest to the page. There is some time and learning curve here. However, if you do put some time in here at the beginning to invest in time in the Design Plus templates and guides, it will save you some time in the long run. But just recognize that there is some time aspect. So here is a tabbed example. This is the same 3 pages you saw earlier. And you notice that they have a tabbed navigation here. We have those same 3 pages about accessible hyperlinks, and we use the same code we embed. So you're just building into your page here. Again, notice that last one was a really long scroll. That's something to keep in mind, especially if you use the tabbed content, because students are going to want and expect that there is a similar size. The nice thing about Design Plus is I used one button. I copied that page and I changed it. Maybe I don't want tabs. I'm going to use left side buttons. So I went in and just selected left side buttons. So now I have a different kind of navigation. Again, you have this navigation here, same 3 pages. And this last one, it gets really long. So that's something to really consider as we look at moving things into pages, is the consistent length of your pages so that students can work through that expectation. So that's 4 options that you have. And Ryan is now going to talk about, I'm going to get it to the next page for you, Pressbooks.
Great, thanks. So here you can see, so ISU Pressbooks is an option that we have. Pressbooks is similar to WordPress, and it does exist outside of ISU, but as instructors and as students and staff, you can use it. It's paid for by the State Board of Education. So in order to make something in ISU Pressbooks, you'll want to make sure to go to our ISU version of it, not to the commercial version of it. That's a confusion I've seen people have before. So sort of a caveat at the beginning. But on the image here, you can see a couple different ways that you could present Pressbooks within Canvas. The first 2 options are just links, as you can see. Normally, you'd want to make it a nice, more readable link, but I wanted to make sure that it was explicit to all of our audience exactly what the code was behind the scenes. So the first one would just take the reader to the sort of table of contents that I'm going to show you on the next slide. The other one will take you directly to a sort of page or chapter of the Pressbook. Pressbooks calls things chapters if it's a one single scrollable element, because they have in mind for their target audience, people might print them out. And so what looks like one long scrollable thing might become 5 or 10 pages when printed. So they use chapters in a way that is a little counterintuitive when you're talking about reading on the screen primarily. So the overview that I want to communicate here is that Pressbooks is really good for when you have exceptionally lengthy reading, like it's mini scrolling segments in Canvas. Pressbooks would be great for that. Or if you want to have interactive elements, and I'll demonstrate that a little bit soon. The cons are that there's a bit of a learning curve to getting used to making them, and also they're outside of Canvas in terms of authoring them. And for most students, most of the time you're going to want to use one of the URL links, so that'll open it up in another browser tab. And so you'll be asking students and trusting students to actually click on those and go read them. You can, if you are willing to brave the wilds of the HTML editor, you can make it appear in the same frame as I have here, where you can see 8 small group share. That's one chapter sort of embedded in what HTML calls an iframe. We could supply the code for that. You can size it larger and smaller. The downside of it is you have to get into the code editor. Also, it doesn't let you navigate from chapter to chapter. So here you could just scroll down to the end of chapter 8, and it wouldn't let you within that iframe embedded bit move to 9 or go back to 7. You would have to put that onto another thing, another page in Canvas. So there's a little bit of weird considerations if you want to do those advanced HTML behind the scenes approaches. But I'll let you see what Pressbooks looks like once somebody actually goes to it now. Here's a little video that will let us see what I'm not sure why it's not loading there. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, so when you scroll down, you'll see this is quite long. You'll initially see a table of contents. So this has 3 sections with multiple what they call chapters inside. It'll have book information. This particular one is written by Lance Rowe of the ITRC. This has sort of all the extra information of it. Pressbooks is really designed for book length things. That's what it has in mind. It has a table of contents that people can expand and use. So it's very good for jumping back and forth. And each of these, you can embed a video if you'd like. There's other sort of text formatting available. And here's one of those interactive elements I was telling you about. This is an H5P activity where students can drag and drop different possibilities in this fill in the blank interactive element. And then it'll also let them check their work. What's great about that is it's interactive. They can actually experience it, test their knowledge. The downside is this does not connect to the gradebook in the LMS. So it won't speak to Moodle currently. It won't speak to Canvas in the future. They're working on making that possibly happen, but we expect it'll be a paid add-on. And so at the moment, the best way to think about it is very much just as interactive for the student to check their own knowledge and not think of it as a proper assessment like you would in a learning management system. So that's what Pressbooks looks like. And then here's a little bit more robust version of the pros and cons, just because it is a bit more involved than the previous options that we've had. So as I said before, it is very book-like. So when that's appropriate, it's excellent. It has textbook formatting options beyond the ones that I demonstrated here. It can have call-out boxes or glossary terms and other things that are really useful. It has those interactive H5P elements, like the drag and drop that we just saw. It's free to anybody to create at ISU. It's of course free to students to read, and to print from it. They would be paying by page to print, but they are allowed to, as long as the instructor who's the author of it enables that, they can download it or print it with no problem. And a pro, depending on how you think, is that anyone with the link can read it. Unlike Google Docs, it's not authenticated. You don't have to log in to read it. It's just if you have the URL, anyone can read it. Pressbooks is designed for people to make open educational resources. People who are going for tenure might see that as a pro because they want people at other institutions to know that they're writing about a subject and have it be available beyond ISU. I also put that last anyone with a link can read it in the con. It's at the bottom of the cons list because depending on the topic, depending on the instructor situation, you might not want your syllabus to be publicly available to everyone with a link. So that's instructor discretion as to whether or not it's a good or a bad. It can be both depending on the scenario. For the rest of the cons, as I said, it is outside of Canvas primarily. So it involves a moderate learning curve to both sign up and then to get used to that different authoring environment. And the other big con is that the interactive elements don't link to the Canvas gradebook. So otherwise, Pressbooks for lengthy reading is a really good option.
If you want to learn more about Moodle, Canvas, or anything else related to educational technology supported at Idaho State University, you can access our Tiger Tracks articles, which are how-to articles at your fingertips, teaching you many different things about the technology that we support. We also have our Wednesday webinar video library. So I mentioned earlier in the webinar that this will be recorded and edited and placed on our video library, but we do Wednesday webinars every Wednesday during the semester. So we have a whole library of videos that you can access. You can also access our Wednesday webinar schedule. So as I mentioned, we will have Wednesday webinars every Wednesday throughout the fall and the spring. Right now, it's just our fall schedule out. You can take a look to see what we're going to be doing in the future. If you want to meet with the ITRC, you are welcome to do that. And we encourage you to do so. You can contact us a number of different ways, either by email. You can give us a call at 208-282-5880. You can visit us downstairs in the library on the Pocatello campus, or you can schedule a one-on-one on-demand appointment. We're happy to meet by Zoom, by phone, or in person. And please be on the lookout for future Wednesday webinars. I mentioned that schedule. You can also find it advertised in the Idaho State Today, which I imagine most of you have found, or you can check it out. We also recommend that you check out the Canvas Transition website. It's a very important website, one-stop shop, everything about the Canvas transition, including links to resources for you. Bookmark that page, and as you are working to convert your content from Moodle to Canvas to prepare for the fall of 2020, you can access this site to get help. You can also access the ITRC. Thank you so much, and we hope you have enjoyed this webinar and have a great day.